Welcome to Sun Valley, Idaho, where I'm here for nationals, and you're not going to be surprised to know that it's sunny here and the snow is actually melting quite a bit. However, we're hoping we can still kick a little butt and take some names. And speaking of which, names, that's kind of where I want to begin today's Puncty Bite. We're going to be looking at the TA schedule, because I thought this is what we need to know on a week when I'm not going to be present and you're going to be needing to rely on one another for absolutely everything. I thought, man, I'm going to go back through this TA schedule and make sure that everybody knows how to contact one another, because in my absence it will be communication that is absolutely 100% key. And speaking of keys, I put the key to the lab into the cold room, so where you will typically find your buckets when we store them in the cold room, and where I also stored your buckets, you'll find a tiny little circular Tupperware dish, and in that Tupperware dish is the key to the lab. So for anyone who needs to open up the lab when Jacob or Richard are not opening up the lab, that is where you're going to find the key. So just a quick note, here is the contact information for Jacob and for Richard. Also, this is all the contact information for everyone else. So for example, as James, as you're getting your practical exam together and you need to get a hold of Sarah, all of her contact information is here. Likewise, if Mara needs to reach Callie, this is how you'll get a hold of her. This may be particularly important with regards to reaching Elia. Elia has already done a great deal of work on setting up the practical for his and T's version, and he has my key to the building, which turns out to be an interesting conundrum because I was unable to bring back the gifts and money that I wanted to give to Chelsea and to Kyle Bolenbaugh, because I wasn't able to get back in, but I do have those for you guys, and I'm hopeful that I might be able to get my sister to bring those up to you. And if so, that will work out fine. If not, I'll be getting those to you a little bit later. Okay, so being able to contact one another, this may be very important for you this week. Keep this in mind. This is on your TA jump drive that you downloaded early in the semester, so you can absolutely access it there and find it there. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and take a moment to look at the schedule for the week, and to recall that we will be taking on the Fungus Among Us lab on the 4th and 5th for most of you. However, Elia and T, you'll be doing your practical on the 5th. And Elia knows this, but T, just for your information, we have inoculated the EMB, the GSA, and TSA plates. Elia is planning to put those into the incubator tonight, Sunday night, and he's going to go check on them on Monday to make sure that they look good and that they're ready for that version. Now, Richard, I put EMBs into your box, which is now in the cold room, so you need to just remember on Monday night to put those into the incubator along with everything else so that your EMB plates will be good and ready for the practical on Wednesday. And speaking of the Wednesday version, you guys are going to need to turn around the practical from Elias' Tuesday version to your Wednesday version, and I believe I received the forward from Sarah saying that you all are going to meet at noon on Wednesday, so you're going to want to be there. So that's James and Shanker and David and of course Richard and Jacob. All of you are meeting at noon to set up the practical exam prior to that Wednesday version, which means then that at that point, after the 3 to 5 labs, Sarah and Josh's version is done, then Amy and Mara and Callie and Carl and Anna are going to need to come in on Wednesday night and turn around to your practical for Thursday morning. The EMB plates should still be good for that long, so you should be able to reuse those to have ready for your practical. Now, Erin and Tara, and remember you're missing Kyle this week, you guys are going to have to reset up your version along with Jesse and Bo at noon on Thursday, so you're going to have to change that out. And again, remember, I won't be there at all, so you're going to have to do all of this on your own. Now, I'm going to write down so that everybody knows that Chelsea will be here on the 5th taking my place. Chelsea's contact is on that sheet that I also showed you. Kyle Bolenbaugh and Jacob will take my place here, and again, I believe their contact information is on there as well. So then Elia will be taking my place in Open Lab on Friday. And of course, he'll be helping out James and Shankar and David. And Elia knows where just about everything is, so it should roll around pretty quickly there, and it should go very smoothly. Jacob will probably also be there on Friday. Now, if we do a good job of communicating, here's my hope, and I really hope you guys can help me with this. I don't want to have to ask John to come in and help. He's interviewing for a professorship this week, and it's going to be very stressful for him. So we're going to try to steer clear of asking him for help. Okay, so that being said, I want to take a moment to talk about this other big white elephant in the room, I don't know. Midterm grades are due. It looks like everybody's doing a phenomenal job with keeping up on eCompanion, but I'm going to go ahead and pull up some samples from eCompanion. So let's begin with the general microbiology. And this is our fictional student here. And what I want to show you is the scores that should be entered into eCompanion and the total that we should see when midterms roll around on Wednesday. So looking at this, the next pre-labs to be entered will be 10, 11, 12, and 13. Let's enter up through pre-lab 13 and then stop entering. This should allow us to get a point total of 185 points. And then this will mean that for medical micro, you guys will be looking at a point total of 65 points. So let me bring up that. So here's our fictional student for medical microbiology, and you can see that the point total here all the way up through pre-lab 13 should be 60 out of 65 points. That's where we're going to want to keep things so that I can submit the grades to Dr. Mani for the medical micro sections. Now, one thing to note about this is that if a student did not submit an assignment, we won't get a point total out of 65 unless we add a 0 for that assignment. So if you have unsubmitted assignments, please go ahead and add a 0 for that student for that assignment, and make sure that all of your students, their point total states that it's out of 65 points. Again, that's for medical microbiology. Okay, marvelous. Now we can take just a moment to talk about the Lab 13 TA guidelines, and also because T and Elia will be going on to Lab 15, I want to take a moment to talk about that as well. So pulling up our Word files for those TA guidelines, we went already through a lot of the comments on Lab 13 and noted that this is a big lecture. It's a lecture that you're going to want to spend time studying for. So I know that Amy and Callie and I think that Bo and Jesse, we're going to share this lecture. You know that you're going to want to really get jazzed and really get prepared for this. And I know I was so stoked to see Jesse and Bo planning that on Friday. So thank you guys so much for really doing it up in this lecture, because it is really a fun one, and really one that it is really centered on a lot of that fun content from the lecture. That means that the lab itself is actually pretty chill. And in fact, if you'd like the students to just split up the tasks for the lab, they can go ahead and do that. I don't mind if every student doesn't need to do everything. I just want them to get a sense of fungus. And in hoping in this lecture more than anything to inspire them to want to go on in mycology and to maybe think about taking a mycology or medical mycology course. So if we look at that as being our learning objective for the day, is to get them jazzed on fungus. That is what we're really trying to do. That being said, the other goal that we have for this day is to review for the practical exam. So let me show you the review that is posted online for the practical. And just take a moment to remind you that this can be accessed on the lab website. So I'm pulling up the lab website here. And if you go to additional information on the lab website and scroll down, you're going to see a review for practical exam number 1. Now this is a Google Doc, so it takes just a couple of minutes to come up. Make sure to give it a minute to load, And then you can scan down through this review, and this will help you structure your review in class. It will help you know what to go through, and I've even noted the skill things in red, so they will need to be able to focus a microscope. And actually, along those lines, this is the station in your practical exam that will take the most time. So my suggestion is to set up 2 microscopes at this station, and rather than doing this for the gram stain as we have sometimes done in the past, I suggest to do it for your direct stain or your negative stain, so that it's a little bit easier on you, because you will need to make multiple slides to enable them to refocus and wipe and refocus on those slides. It's a lot easier to make those for say the direct stain than it is to do that for the gram stain in many cases. But I'll let you use your judgment on that. But please do remember that you need to have slides made for that. I believe that it took Elia about 3 hours or so to prep for his practical exam. So try to schedule, budget enough time that will allow you to get ready for your practical, because in my absence I won't be able to make those slides for you. So it may be something that you may need to budget a little bit more time for than you usually budget. Okay, that's all about the review, and then I want to take just a little bit of time to talk about Lab 15, because again, T and Elia will be going onto this lab, and then the rest of us will also be going onto this lab the next time. This is a very content-rich lecture. If you are planning to give the lecture, start studying ahead of time. As I scan down, you can kind of see just how beefy the TA guideline is for this. By no means do you have to know absolutely everything on this TA guideline to give a bang-up lecture, but it certainly will give you a lot of background on the biochemical characterization of different unknown bacteria. And this is where we're headed with this eventually. In lecture, we will focus on a subset of what is mentioned in this TA guideline, but sometimes it's very nice to be able to have something extra to say. You will do and introduce some of the biochemical tests on this day, for example, the SIM media, the MSA, and the BAP. Also on BAP, you will be doing throat swabs. So for the throat swabs, if you would please have students do the throat swabs first and then go on to their biochemical testing. I don't want them throwing around S. pyogenes at the same time as they're swabbing each other's throats, just for obvious safety reasons. So in terms of throat swabbing, please also make sure that the swabs that you're using are the single individually wrapped swabs and not the ones that are in the glass jars. That's again another safety consideration. I hope this is enough to get you started on everything that needs to be happening this week, and I really have to profusely thank all of you for the extra amount of work that you're doing to enable me to be here in Sun Valley, and I hope very much that I can come back with good news about the performance. But I suppose I'd have to say already that the good news is that my athletes are always rocking my world just about as much as my TAs do.